So due to the heightened pressures that have been ramping up due to the infrastructure negotiations, many people have been going on corporate media outlets, progressives in particular, to discuss their opposition to the moderates. And political hack MSNBC pundit Mr. Chuck Todd asked Marc Pocan such a ridiculous question. Take a look at this, and then we'll discuss it.
Accidentally gives that wing some oxygen.
Well, and that's why we're fighting so hard to get the president's whole agenda done, because we know these are things that really will matter to people, the average person in my district. But remember, over 200 House Democrats and 48 Senate Democrats are rowing together on this. We're all working together. There are a couple people in the Senate and a handful or two in the House that are still picking what kind of wood they want for their oar. But the rest of us are all together. So saying there's a divide in the Democratic Party isn't correct. Don't forget, the real opposition is big pharma and the special interests that don't want to pay for this bill, because this bill is completely paid for by the wealthiest and big corporations who don't pay their taxes. They're trying to get in the ear of every member, and only a few of them right now are kind of listening. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to know if they don't deliver child care to their constituents, they don't deliver the paid family leave, they don't deliver the free community college, that they're going to have far bigger problems. So I am still confident that these are democratic values. These are things that people really will see the value, and we're going to get this done. It's just, it might be, as some have said, the storm before the calm. I think that's what you're watching.
What the part of this that I think has been hard to digest is, why don't you trust some of these other members when they say, hey, let's pass the bipartisan bill, we're going to be there, but reconciliation is going to take longer. Put some points on the scoreboard for Biden, let him get his signing ceremony there, and finish reconciliation in the fall. Why are you so afraid? And you're not alone. A lot of progressives are. Senator Cory Booker on, who had his own reasoning why he didn't want to go down this route. Explain why you don't trust that process to work for you.
Sure. Well, I think it's, the Popeye cartoon from growing up, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. This group doesn't want to do the rest of the bills unless we put a little extra pressure on them. And we're trying to do these ideas that are the big ideas the American people are really going to benefit from and see the very direct benefit in a tax cut for people, 40 million Americans who have kids, lower costs, creating 2 million jobs, many that are going to tackle climate change. But in order to get that done, we have to get a few people to maybe listen a little less to some of the Washington.
Wow. Where the fuck has this guy been his entire life? I don't understand. You see, this is how mainstream media hacks see the world. This is how they see politics. Look at it. It's absolutely astounding, that question that he posed. But before I get into that, Marc Pocan says that there isn't a divide, and the notion that there's a divide in the Democratic Party isn't correct. I had to touch on this before I proceeded. No, Marc, that is correct. No. That is correct. You have progressive members that want certain things. You have moderates that don't want those certain things. That's a divergence. That's a divide. Okay. Now, so Chuck Todd says, and I love this. This is great. Why don't you trust the moderates when they say, hey, let's pass the bipartisan bill, put the reconciliation bill to the side, we'll always be there, and then later on down the line, we'll come back and pass the reconciliation bill later, after we put some points on the scoreboard for Joe Biden, let him do the signing thing, and then we'll come back to your idea momentarily. Mr. Chuck Todd, have you ever seen the show Charlie Brown? In that video, Marc Pocan made a Popeye reference. I'm going to make a Charlie Brown reference. I know everybody has seen Charlie Brown before, right? You guys remember when Charlie goes to kick the football, and the other kid, I can't for the life of me remember what his name is, but he holds the football. And when Charlie goes to kick the football, he moves the football out of the way. And then Charlie goes up in the air and lands on his back. He tricked him. He didn't let him actually kick the football. That's what the fuck is going to happen if they give up on these reconciliation negotiations. Chuck, I know this is too much for you to understand, but the progressives in this moment in time have something that's called, say it with me, leverage. It's called leverage, okay? You see, they're saying to the moderates, hey, you won't get what you want unless we get what we want. And you know what that does? That poses an interesting predicament for the moderates, because they're like, oh, well, if we don't get them what they want, we won't get what we want. And maybe we want what we want more than we want to deny them what they want. That's the entire definition of what leverage is. But somehow he isn't capable of understanding that. And he's saying, hey, you should just trust these guys because they're so very trustworthy. These moderates that are backed, and it's not just two of them, it's more than that, that are backed by these special interests. Oh, yeah, they're so fucking trustworthy. You know what's going to happen? It's going to be like Charlie Brown football situation. We're going to pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and then we're going to say, hey, how about we return the budget reconciliation? And guess what the moderates are going to say? Why? Why would we do that? No, I think we're okay. I think we're good. There were reports that Joe Manchin was saying, let's pause the budget reconciliation bill to 2022. And guess what happens? When that time rolls around, he's probably going to be like, still not ready. Let's push it to 23, 24. Oh, guess what? Republican takeover. Actually, that might just happen in 2022. If they don't do something on this bill, they already neglected election reform. So if they don't pass this, they're not going to have anything to run on. But the thing is, they don't really care. Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, the rest of the moderates, they don't really care. And, you know, I only say them by name because those are the only names that I know, because they're always, the media just pushes them in your fucking face as if they're the only two. No. There are others as well. They're just hiding behind the two figures that are Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. But let me go back to my last point. They don't really care. Look at what Joe Biden's doing right now. Yeah, nothing. And don't try to spin to me, oh, he's meeting with Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, and yeah, meetings that make no progress. Meetings that change no minds. He's not taking a hardliner approach. He's meeting with them and begging and pleading. He's not coming to Joe Manchin and saying, hey, I heard your daughter got caught up in some really corrupt shit. You know? I mean, it'd be a shame if we had to get the DOJ to look into it, maybe get her some jail time. I don't know. I mean, it depends on how harsh the situation is. But hey, I mean, if you were to vote for this, we could overlook all that stuff. He's not saying that. He's not saying that. He's not coming to Kyrsten Sinema and saying, hey, look, I know you're taking all this money from these special interests and corporations. You probably want them to employ you after you're done legislating and what have you. But, you know, I could make it to where your life is a living hell. And I can campaign against you. I'm the president. I'm the most powerful man in the country, in the world. I can pretty much do to you whatever I want, unless you were to vote for this legislation. Not happening, not gonna happen. Why? Because he probably doesn't really care himself. You know, they can grandstand and say, oh, this is my agenda. This is Biden's agenda. Yeah, it is. It was his agenda. But what if that was just so he can get elected? Now that he's elected, I don't really have to do any of this stuff. Who knows? Maybe he actually does believe in it, but actions speak louder than words, sir. And you're going to have to show the American people. You're going to have to show them. And right now, they're doing the exact opposite. Nancy Pelosi, this is no surprise, has abandoned the progressives that she was once defending, saying that the bills need to be passed at the same time. She's abandoned that. She says now that they need to focus on passing the bipartisan infrastructure bill. That being said, she's not being followed, seemingly, by progressives. Bernie Sanders is still staunch, and Bernie Sanders has come out and basically just said, hey, man, look, he's pleading for progressives in the House to just vote against it if they don't have the votes for the reconciliation bill, or if everybody's not for the reconciliation bill. So things are muddy. Things aren't looking up. We might not see either of the bills get passed Thursday. I think that's when they're supposed to be having the vote. I'm not sure. But this was awful by Chuck Todd. Why don't you trust the moderates? What have the moderates done to earn anybody's trust? How often have they blocked progressive legislation because their pockets are being fed by all this dark money that's circulating in Washington as it so often does? My God, this is what mainstream media has to offer. This is the best that they have to offer. Mr. Chuck Todd asking Mr. Marc Pocan, why doesn't he trust the moderates? Want to know why? Because he has every fucking reason not to.